Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm your host, Phil Baki. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Mikka Burrell. Mikka, I don't know about you. This week has felt long, and each day has felt like it's flown by. How's that possible?
I think I know what you're saying, because it's only like Wednesday, but yet it's been tough out here.
Like I looked up from my computer at one point today, and it was 1:30, and I felt like I had just got to work, which feels like it should be a good thing. And in reality, it was like I'm running out of time. Like
you're like,
for
wait,
the
I haven't been
shit
productive.
I need to do.
Right? No, that was me today too. So, but I was also having like IT issues, so I was like, I give up.
Oh, that's the worst.
No, yeah, it's. I think maybe our perception of time is a little bit skewed by like this run that Locomotive are on, perhaps.
Yeah.
The suffering feels drawn out, maybe. I don't know. That's just a theory.
It's been tough. So obviously, everyone joining us, we are El Paso Locomotive podcast. So we'll get on to another loss for the boys and a continuation of the winless streak. It's been, famine or feast this season for Locomotive and no in-betweens. But if you are finding us for the first time, obviously a little bit of a tough run to be in, but hope that you're able to jump in and enjoy the podcast. We are on most forms of social media at Seriously Loco. We are on X, whatever that means. X Twitter, which is just like kind of a funny joke in and of itself because it is literally X Twitter.
So dumb.
And now called X. So yeah, we're there. We're on Instagram. I'm sure we'll make our way over to Threads at some point, but we're putting it off. Just having to run another account because
truly
it's too much.
It really is.
So I think the social media managers listening to this will sympathize, and we all our love goes to those who are now running like 25 different accounts. Send me that blue sky invite. So with all that being said, you can find us there. But the thing that doesn't change is you can find us on every major podcast platform. Anywhere where you get podcasts, you can find us, Seriously Loco Soccer Pod. And if you enjoy this episode and feel compelled to leave a rating or review on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which I think are the two main platforms where you can do that, then we'd really appreciate it. But with all that being said, Mikka, the Seriously Loco match review. We said Locomotive's run, this poor run, continuing, and it did continue with a 3-1 loss at home to Oakland Roots. This one on the back of a tough draw, really a draw that felt distinctly like a loss, despite the fact that it took a late Gomez goal to even salvage the draw. Little bit of a tough performance, tough result there, then followed up immediately with another disappointing performance at home, and Locomotive now winless in 6, as we said. And with this 3-1 loss to Oakland, I mean, losing to Oakland is something that Locomotive have done. We've done it at home. We've done it in different variations of this team. Probably our worst loss of last season was on the road to Oakland Roots.
We lost in the playoffs to them.
Yeah, we lost in the playoffs. Lowry's done it. Hutch has done it. Claire Hout has now done it. So it's not necessarily a rare thing. And at the same time, there's something about this particular loss in this run without a win that feels just more painful because the team just isn't finding their way out of this tough run.
Yeah, I mean, it's been brutal. It's been absolutely brutal. Yeah, this Oakland Roots side have our number. What can I say? I mean, they sign a hometown boy in Memo Diaz, and all of a sudden they have superpowers against us, I guess. And actually, one of the goal scorers is also a Southern New Mexico native, so a lot of borderland violence, if you will. It's been really, really tough, and with this game in particular, I think what's even more frustrating is that it really was a tale of two halves. I thought the first half was competent from Locomotive. You know, it wasn't like absolutely scintillating stuff, but we were putting them under pressure. We were getting scoring chances, which, you know, we'll get onto why that's a huge problem because they're just chances, not actual goals. And then the second half, we completely fell away, and especially once we, I would say once they scored the first goal and equalized, it just felt like we had no fight in us. And Brian Claerhout said in his post-training presser on Tuesday that the tactical plan went out the window. And he said that that's something that you could criticize the team for throughout the season. And I think that that's absolutely right, because these two halves had no resemblance to each other. So
yeah,
seems like the boys got away from the plan and we paid for it.
It is interesting, like how we obviously talked a lot about this team in their unbeaten run and how well they adapted, how well they responded. And we talked, I think, last episode about that lack of fight and that just the lack of a response. And it was unfortunately on show again in this one when, after going down 2-1, there really wasn't a whole lot of fight back from the team. I mean, there were maybe a couple of half chances, but nothing super significant. And definitely, I mean, from a, you know, what you'd expect from a team chasing, especially throwing on the likes of Lucho and everything like there in the second half, it just again, like, wasn't enough from the team. And you couple that with them, you know, per the words of the coach, like, getting away from the plan. That's not often a recipe for success when you don't have the tactics and you don't have the passion, if you will.
Yeah, and Brian Claerhout, he said he takes responsibility for that. And man, we didn't even start with the starting lineup and how Lucho Soloniak was on the bench for the start of this game. And unfortunately for him, he comes on and we ship. Is it 2 goals? He came on at 1-1, I think, right? Or
he comes on at 1-1.
Yeah.
And 2 minutes later, Johnny Rodriguez scores the goal to take the lead.
Yeah.
And then so he's -2 on the night if we're playing like hockey
plus minus
hockey
yeah.
stats.
Yeah, I mean, I think that tells you everything, that Brian Claerhout did want to win this game. He brought on a difference maker who has faltered in recent weeks and I think deserved to start on the bench over others. And he brings him on in a period of time where we can still get something out of the match and then we just completely throw it away. Yeah. I think before, like, we're gonna roast Locomotive tonight, obviously, because it's just not good enough, but I do want to give credit to Oakland Roots for some of the finishes that they were able to put together. And I give them credit, but I also want to say that their tactical plan was so simple that it kind of pisses me off that, like, we allowed it to flourish, because it was really just passing triangles down the wide areas over and over and over and over again. The first big chance that they have that Benny Diaz is up for save of the week for is just passing triangles. Like, these are like training exercises, and they were getting up the pitch and into the box so easily with that. The second goal, I believe, or maybe the second or the first goal is similar. Another one, I think the chip starts like that, going right up the wing, and then
the first for
So I want to give them credit for, like, making us pay, but also, like, it's so, like I said, it's like a training exercise. It's like they were going around cones, and it's frustrating.
I think what's almost more frustrating about especially the goals for Oakland and the way in which they adapted to Locomotive pressure, the way that they shut down like the switch and all this stuff and kind of the long balls over the top. They stopped allowing certain space. It's funny because those passing triangles like down the wings, that is something that this clear out version of Locomotive was doing a lot of during their good run, creating that sort of space. I think there's a couple of games that pop up into my mind, but those sorts of triangles, on the right, whether it's Navarro or Miles Lyons connecting with Dennis Kostishin, connecting with either Liam or Eric, whoever's on that side of midfield, whoever was on that side of midfield, and ditto for the other side, whether Petrovic or Gomez or whoever, plus that midfielder plus Eder Borelli. That's the other triangle, and that's like who you play through the press with and how you work the ball down the flank. And Oakland basically did the exact same thing to Locomotive that I would say like Locomotive had been doing to teams earlier this season. And I think a lot of credit does need to go to Noah Delgado and in the fact that he did to Brian Clairhout what we've praised Brian for a lot this season, which is he made adjustments and nothing earth-shattering, but he made adjustments at halftime that clearly did make a big difference. And obviously, it doesn't stop Locomotive from taking the lead, but it did stop Locomotive from being a threat broadly over the second half versus how they had been in the first, which I guess that's kind of where we can start is Locomotive, as they did against RGV, and obviously we didn't get a chance to talk about the RGV game, but kind of lumping them both together, Locomotive come out of the blocks in this one quite well. And watching it back, it was kind of, it's tough because it's like, man, these opening like 5-10 minutes, Locomotive are all over Roots. I mean, early chances, we've talked about some of the early chances maybe coming too soon, those sorts of things. Early chances, creating like very, very good, solid looks on goal. And again, despite that start, just not being able to capitalize on it and turn it into anything that they can carry over the 90 minutes.
Yeah, like I said at the top of the show, the first half was pretty good. Several good opportunities, particularly Petr Petrovic. The long ball was on to him. The Navarro Petrovic link up, even though they play on other sides of the field, was on.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did play like dirty long ball. Like it seemed like we were like emulating Sean Dyche's best Burnley side.
Sure.
But it works, and it worked, I should say, for the first half before Delgado made those adjustments, as you said. And yeah, I think we were fine. I think we were just not finishing, which has been the problem. I mean, we've out XG'd our opponents for the most part throughout this barren run. And that's another thing that Brian said is that the data shows that we're better than we are playing or than the results that we're getting. And,
for sure,
we're not, football's not played on a data graph or a spreadsheet, right? So, I mean, that's the hard part about it is like these numbers, like it kind of hurts to see because it doesn't reflect, the points that we're getting, which is not many. And that was my long-winded way of explaining that. But yeah, basically like the data is not matching up to what's actually happening. But yeah, I mean, the first half, just more of the same though with our issues is like the chance creation is not an issue. And I think I said this last time we spoke. It's the finishing. And when Lucho Soloniak is so out of form the way that he is and didn't even start this game again, you do look to your secondary scorers, and that's Petr Petrovic, who's struggled with injury and perhaps is unhappy. Maybe we could talk about that later. But Gomez, who had a really good look off the post, took the shot really well. And there's that part of it too, is like just not being very lucky, which is frustrating. But yeah, when your leading scorer is not scoring, and your secondary scores are not, as reliable, typically,
Yeah.
you get things like this where we're punching it right at Paul Blanchette, and it's just too easy for him.
I wanted to talk. So speaking, just while we're talking about those, those early chances in particular stand out, but our shooting over the 90 minutes, I think, is interesting and maybe leads to a secondary conversation talking about volume, goal scorers, all that sort of stuff. But during this match, Locomotive end the match with 13 shots, 5 of which were on target. Obviously, Petar Petrovic, the shot that leads to the goal was counted as a shot off target because it's an own goal. So it's not actually. So technically, Blanchette saves 5 of the 5 shots on target he faced, and concedes from an own goal. We'll talk about the goal here in a little bit, but Petar takes the most shots of anyone on the team with 4. Only manages to get the 1 on target, which Blanchette did save. Gomez with 2 shots, the one off the post and another off target. So those both count off target. Zacharias with 1, Borelli with 1, Calvillo with 1, Lucho with 1, Bense with a header, which was a kind of a garbage time, like almost consolation at 3-1. So the interesting thing for me, and maybe the secondary conversation and talking about this sort of run, is that Denis Kostishin plays 77 minutes and does not take a single shot. He had been, by a distance, the team's like most volume shot taker. So how much, I guess, like, we talk about the drop off of Lucho, and we know that his finishing has not been at the level that it's been at. That's one conversation where it's like, we know that Lucho can go through like hot and cold parts of the season. He is a bit of a confidence player. We've talked about that, in past seasons. And he had a really hot hand. He doesn't anymore. The more interesting thing is Kostishin, in like him not shooting. Him shooting too much was a discussion of, in the van. Oh, is Kostishin taking too many bad shots? It can't be a good sign when the person who takes the most shots on the team doesn't take a single one in a game.
Yeah, that is a really interesting like statistical outlier, because he's one of the biggest volume shooters in the entire league. Anecdotally and from my memory, I just don't remember Denis having that much of an impact on the game at all, generally. So, and I think that's a consequence of just how the team played. It's not saying that he was like terrible or something. Like,
right.
I think the whole team was not good. But maybe more abstractly, I don't know. Maybe you have a thought on this, Phil. I mean, maybe confidence is low, right? Because when you're feeling yourself, you might take more of those chances. You might do things that maybe high risk, high reward. I don't know. Or maybe someone's had a word with him about it, because we do know that this coaching staff is very data led. And maybe they're telling him, like, you are shooting from bad positions. Although publicly Brian says that he loves it. So I don't know. It could be any number of those things or a mixture of all of them.
Interestingly, Denis has, since taking 3 shots and none on target in the loss to San Antonio at home, he actually has not taken a shot in the RGV game or this game. Which, if I remember correctly, there was conversation around the amount of shots he was taking, like, after the San Antonio game, or maybe before the San Antonio game?
There was a sequence, I think, in the San Antonio game, just a sequence in and of itself,
where he takes 2 shots.
He takes 2 shots, both blocked, and it's like there's runners all around him. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has not, in the last 2 games, he has not attempted a shot. And he hasn't gotten anything on target. He has not attempted a shot. So I think there is maybe a little bit of a mental game going on. Interesting too that Navarro ends the night with the most shots on target for Locomotive, which I think tells part of the story. But
Mark was pretty
Navarro,
good.
I was going to say, Navarro playing on the same flank as Dennis, you talked about like the lack of impact that was felt from Dennis. Conversely, Mark Navarro, especially in the first half, it felt like he was kind of running the game from right back. And I mean, credit where it's due, he should have had probably at least one assist, probably two in the first half.
Yeah, he kept finding Petrovic in that space out on the left, dropped an absolute peach of a ball to him, our first big chance, and then Petr returns the favor later on, finds Mark at the far post, and he heads right on target to Paul Blanchette. So, I mean, one thing about Navarro I think that we've seen is like he's very good at timing his runs for the most part. I mean, he's been caught out here and there, but it's not been devastating or anything. He in this game especially, I think he timed his runs really well, arrived at really good areas and was playmaking, as you said, from that right back position. So yeah, I don't know, maybe there's something to that like only one player can really shine on that flank, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Mark was good and probably deserved a little bit more.
Before we talk about the second half, at halftime, Liam comes off for Chapa, and I guess whether being in the stadium for the game or in any of the comments post training, was there any further like discussion of Liam's fitness and whether this was just a precaution, like he felt something at halftime and came off, or did you see anything that may hint at this potentially being a longer term situation for Liam?
You know what? I haven't come across that, and I don't know that it was spoken about in anything that I've seen. I didn't attend the press conference myself, but did try to watch it afterwards, and I don't think Brian said anything about it in training. I mean, I guess I could look at the training photos. That might be a
is
thing.
Liam pictured?
But he did finish the half. So
he did.
I almost
yeah.
I almost think it is precautionary. But that's really rotten luck if it's something more serious, because like he just signed an extension with the club. Like sign an extension, get injured. That's pretty harsh.
And he's been, I think, it's worth mentioning the fact that he's been, despite the team's recent struggles, like Liam's been in really good form this year, and I think we've been really encouraged by what we've seen, and obviously happy, thrilled for him to be locked down, because any sort of roster stability in USL is just, I crave it from players that we want to see stick around. So
far, not seeing him in these training photos from Tuesday. So
let the speculation begin.
Don't love that.
And I'm just gonna say for the record, if y'all hear any booms in the background, I promise it's nothing crazy. There is like a wild thunderstorm happening in Ohio right now, so just so if anyone's getting the subs are picking up any distant booms, just know it's simply ambiance from Ohio's weather patterns. But so Liam, a bit of a question mark, because he does come off. Chapa came on at halftime, but right after halftime, it was looking good for Locomotive as Patar gets onto the ball, kind of cuts in from that left-hand flank and fires a shot towards Oakland's goal, and it was deflected in by Clementa, and eventually credited as an own goal. Probably not a worthwhile discussion to talk about whether or not it deserved to be an own goal, because it's just like, that's how it was scored.
Well, we know that he thought it should have been his goal. So
yes.
Yeah.
He certainly was not happy that it was ruled an own goal. And I tend to agree. It's just one of those things where it's like, if like, is there any real, jeopardy in the official scorer ruling on behalf of the offensive player? Like, probably not, like, if it's borderline, just give it to the shooter, because no one wants to see like own goals or whatever. Like,
yeah. Well,
it's like, if you have enough reason to give it, just give it. But
I mean, the good thing about it is that I think it rattles Clementa, because he like shortly thereafter gets a yellow card.
Yeah.
By the way, Liam is in some of these photos, but he's like hanging out with injured players, like Enter Luth. So I don't know what that means, but
oh no.
Anyway.
Unless he's just buddies with Ander, which could be.
Which like
could be.
Who wouldn't? Ender's awesome. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So the goal itself, though, it kind of, it was along the lines of how Locomotive found success in that first half of finding Petar in space out on the wing, cuts in, this time, puts enough on it to where it does eventually find the back of Roots' net. But from there, you're kind of thinking like, this is more like it, and finally Locomotive have a goal from kind of open play, which we've just been desperate for.
Yeah, it starts, correct me if I'm wrong, it starts with a set piece, doesn't it? Don't we kind of do something from like a training ground
It
move?
does. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so that was interesting to see. And I mean, it's a shame that Petar doesn't get credited for this, because I thought that like in front of goal, while he didn't finish other chances, I thought that he was threatening, and who knows what that would have done for his confidence, right? Yeah, we hoped that the team would have built something from there, but they don't.
No, it was yeah, I mean, and I guess this is where it was played like down the line. Kostitian actually robbed of an assist as well by the awarding of the own goal. So double like potential confidence boosts like done away with,
Right.
by the scorer's decision. But that being said, you're thinking like this is a platform for Locomotive to go on and really cement things in this game, and it was kind of, I don't want to say that quick after the goal, but it was basically the free kick, I guess, when Clementa does get booked just a few minutes later, and Navarro does put the shot on target, and Blanchette like eventually collects it. That would kind of spelled like the end of Locomotive's threat on the night. It was like a long ball by Benny to Gomez, Gomez fouled by Clementa's booked, and that was kind of the end of like Locomotive basically didn't do much else for the next 14 minutes before they conceded the equalizer.
Well, it's like you said, Delgado made adjustments. The long ball wasn't on anymore. That space wasn't as obvious. And we couldn't hit that long ball anymore. So that's where I want to give Oakland their credit, because I think they adjusted. On top of that, I mean, the goals are outrageous. I mean, Mfeka's chip, like that might be the best chip I've seen in USL Championship.
I'm watching it back here, and I mean, it's one of those where like being a fan of the team that conceded it, you want it to win goal of the week, because it's like at least somebody acknowledged that this was
like insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And it felt I guess for many reasons this game ended up feeling quite similar to the loss against San Antonio, where this first goal you're kind of like, well, fair play. Like great finish.
The first screamer, yeah.
Yeah, and it was similar against San Antonio, where it's like, you hold your hands up and you say like, yep, crashes in off the crossbar. This one, it's like, yep, that's a lovely chip with the outside of the boot. Like, if we had scored a goal like that, I still would be talking about it.
I do hate that Brian Tamakis gets an assist because he had an absolutely outrageous dive. Earlier in the game, just embarrassing. But anyway.
Yeah, and it getting tied up with Pitar and
just
acting like he was hit in the face.
Yeah, ridiculous.
The classic attempted sending off.
Right.
But yeah, the Mfeka goal itself, like you said, you mentioned the fact that it does. It actually starts out of the back, and it's Clementa who makes the initial kind of pass.
It's more good wide play, and
right.
It just felt like there was nothing that we could do about it, and I know that's not true.
Right.
So, just really frustrating how easy they were able to progress the ball, and maybe that has something to do with I guess maybe it got worse because Liam Rose went off, right? I don't know. I mean, they were still doing it in the first half too, so that might be a weak excuse. But yeah, it was just so easy for them to go up the wings. And Memo Diaz, like, unfortunately, has a great game. Had like 100 people in the stands there for him. Fair play.
Yeah, Memo. I mean, I talked about it in the preview, but Memo looks really rejuvenated by how Delgado's used him. I mean, when Juan Guerra was there at Oakland, like, he kind of relegated Memo to like a bit player. Didn't really use him all that much. And so to see, I think Mark always thought of Memo as kind of like a depth option. Not that he disrespected Memo in any way. Like, he gave him a shot at playing professionally and all that stuff. But always thought of him as more of a depth option, not really necessarily like having the quality to be like an attacker. Like his quality on the ball and all this stuff. Well, Memo's like, I don't know, he's taken like his lumps in terms of being a backup in El Paso and then eventually being more of a first choice option, like especially with the injuries that Locomotive had. Taking his chance when Locomotive didn't renew his contract, like taking his chance in Oakland with a team that was like down and not highly thought of. Like, everyone was like, Oakland, new team, like, what are they going to do? And then comes and wins a playoff game against his old team, and then isn't playing that often under Guerra, gets another shot under Delgado, and is like playing out of his mind right now. He's just having a really great season. And I mean, for all of the resentment that I think we all like naturally feel of, him having joy at our expense, it's like you do love to see a local kid like Memo, who has gone through the ups and downs. Like, you love to see him thrive. Obviously, I would have loved him to thrive against anybody but us. But yeah, watching this, the Mfeka goal back, it's like there's a lot of good in the buildup from Roots and one-touch stuff, and equally looking at our shape when that ball gets played down the line by Clementa. I think it initially comes out to who is that out there for them out on that wing? Cedeno, I think, receives the initial pass.
This sorry to cut across you, but
yeah,
I'm watching this goal back too, and it's very Hutchinson era of like when the ball is played by Clementa, but the body language of our players is like they don't know the danger.
Right.
And the transition is so quick, and then panic sets in when Borelli tries to go in on Cedeno, and he's
it's actually it is Tamakis and then Cedeno link up, and then Mfeka. So, because it's Tamakis gets the initial pass, they play that. I think it's Cedeno plays that back hill.
They gave Tamakis the assist.
I meant I think it's Cedeno who plays that back heel and gets fouled by Borelli.
Yes. Which takes him out of the game. Now there's
exactly
2-on-1 against, I think that's Bensei back there.
Yeah, it's actually
really
Bensei
like
who ends up Bensei ends up isolated like out wide. McHugh steps up, like, so Bensei's gone out to challenge Cedeno. McHugh doesn't know whether to stick or twist and goes out to close down Tamakis and leaves the run of Mfeka when, like, he should be tracking the run of Mfeka, but Navarro tries to, like, sort of go that way, but realizes he's got Rodriguez and Memo Diaz on his other shoulder, where, like, if Mfeka squares it, it's a tap in. So it's like every single defensive player, like, once those initial decisions get made, every single defensive player only has, like, bad choices. Like, they don't, they only have bad options. Like, none of them have, like, a good course of action to take. And that's ultimately why it feels Hutch to me, where it's like,
yeah,
it feels like we were conceding here kind of regardless, because Oakland had tons of good options after that initial pass gets played, and we basically had no good options to defend against it, because even if Mfeka opts not to shoot here, he has two free bodies at the back post where if he just lifts across, like, we cannot defend it.
Yeah.
There's just... Yeah, which then leads to the second goal, which comes after another like save from Benny. But the second goal comes off a corner, and it feels like, you know, it comes just a few minutes after the first. It's like 4 minutes, I think, between goals, which similar again to San Antonio in that, you know, that first concession like has just kind of dropped. Memo delivers the corner in, and don't get me wrong, it is a fine ball. I'm not trying to be overly critical, but a professional team should not concede this goal.
No,
like,
no.
I just have.
Why is the goal scorer just sat in front of the goalkeeper alone? This is no. You're right. I don't think that's being overcritical. I think that's being realistic. That is piss poor set piece defending. And actually, I don't know, maybe I'm deeping it, but like the shot before that leads to this corner, Benny making another outstanding save, is unnecessary. And that's what really reminded me of San Antonio. Like, why are we allowing these pot shots? Yes, they're low percentage, but they're earning them corners and set pieces, which we historically can't defend. So why are we allowing this, right? Why are we letting Benny get worked like this so much?
Yeah.
And in that sequence, everyone's running backwards again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I don't think you're being overcritical. I think it is like, this is Sunday league stuff. Like, he's all alone in front of our goalkeeper. And I don't know, maybe Benny should give somebody a shout. I don't know. Once again, Eric McHugh looks a little bit lost, not knowing where to go, not knowing whether to stick or twist, like you said. So no, it's not good enough. It's really not.
Yeah. I mean, looking at that, it is Memo who plays the initial pass, like, that leads to the shot. It's, you know, kind of a typical Locomotive move of a crossfield pass. But the tough thing is that Bensei is forward, so he isn't the one challenging to win the aerial duel. It's Eder, which, like, Eder, a lot of great qualities. Winning balls in the air is, like, not his thing. And that's okay. But, like, them winning that initial header basically directly leads to Rodriguez having space for a shot, which Eder then elects not to charge him down. And I think almost, I would say probably at least in part due to the fact that the last time he went out to charge someone down, we conceded. So he's like, okay, I'm not going to get, like, overly aggressive. But it leads to Rodriguez basically having a free hit from, you know, 22 yards, and he's a good striker of the ball. Like, he puts it on target. And then, yeah, like you said, it leads to the goal. That, I mean, there's so much about this, like, the corner itself, the concession is like you said, there's a lot of, like, maybe maybe someone needs a shout or something, but
Here's what I'll say.
Zaka's like running towards the ball, but doesn't actually attack to win the header. McHugh is under the ball. I think it's Bense is under, like both our center backs are caught under the ball, which is crazy. Like, because those are the guys who should be winning that ball 10 out of 10 times.
Here's what I'll say in like very, very, very slight mitigation is
sure.
Clementa makes a really clever near post run and leaps over 2 or 3 of our defenders, and maybe they are unsighted by that because the ball then immediately flies over them. So that is like my small mitigation, but that's also like, again, like textbook set piece attacking. Like someone's gonna make that near post run every fucking time.
Sure.
So still shocking.
I think it's probably telling that at 2-1 the lone shot on target that Locomotive has during that time is from Eder Borelli, who's found himself in like a central area 20 yards out. Tame in the end. And this is not shade towards Eder. It's just literally like,
it's what happened.
Your left back is not the guy you want like in that situation, and we weren't creating anything else of note. Like that is the only chance of note that we created in the period where it was 2-1. I feel like it's worth talking about the mental. We talked about it against San Antonio, but this popping up again where we give up a really good goal. Like the opposition scores a good goal. And we talked about the response and all that stuff, but this time around, like there is a little bit of like head dropping. And does it just come back to the confidence conversation that we had earlier on, where it's like a confident team like takes that like punch and it's just like, yep, we go again. It's 0-0. Like, let's go win the game. This team right now is taking that punch and immediately being like, here we go again.
I mean, we've talked in the good run about how winning is a habit. Losing can be a habit too, and it can be a really tough one to get out of. And we're seeing that. I mean, losing and dropping points, because I think, like you said, the last draw was like basically a loss. Like that's how it felt. Yeah. And then with this one, this is especially demoralizing because it just cements like how bad we are at home, like generally speaking. And if you're not winning your games at home, like that's not a recipe for long-term success. I mean, we could be road warriors all we want, but I mean, you need the fans behind you. And when we're putting these kind of performances on at home, week in, week out, that just doesn't spell good for the club and for the team. So yeah, maybe confidence is low. Confidence is certainly low in the stands, I'll tell you that. And maybe that resonates. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just the heads did drop, and I'm sure Brian will be furious by that because there was still, I mean, he even said it against San Antonio and it looked like the game was done and dusted. He's like, no, I thought we had more time so we could like play, right? He wants to go to the final whistle and he wants the players to have that mentality. So yeah, for heads to drop, I'm sure that is annoying to a coach.
The final goal, it of the three, conceding from a corner is one thing. This one, it's two subs for Oakland who actually combine. It's Wolfgang Prentice and Anwar Peleas, who Prentice makes this run kind of like down the left-hand channel, like
more good wing play.
Yeah. And again, like, kind of undoing us from the inside or from the outside in. And he gets to the byline.
Sleeping there, isn't he? A little bit.
Yeah. He gets to the byline and it's like, he kind of makes this run the way that Prentice makes this run and links up with, who was that out on with Trayvon Reed. So yeah, I mean, it was all subs, all of Oakland subs having an impact on the third goal. So Trayvon Reed, like, just plays like a really simple pass as Sinupe is not tracking the run from Prentice, McHugh goes to close it down. But you look at, it's like Miles was on read. Sinupe was trying and failing to track Prentice. And then at the back post is the other sub in Peleas, who is not being tracked by either Pavkovitz or Borelli, and is just absolutely free. He'll never score a freer goal in his life. And it set off the celebrations fully for Roots because it tied things up, and it was how it was settled at 3-1. But that goal, that's the one where you think like, the second is it seems like their heads have dropped a little bit and they're not really in it. That third one is like, yeah, this is like a beaten team who's just not like, their head just isn't in this game anymore.
If I'm hearing you correctly, that's all of that was to say it was a defensive shambles.
Yeah. And they're just not paying attention. Like, I mean,
that's what I'm gonna say right now. Sinupe, I need him to not be ball watching there. He's also a sub. Should be fresh mentally and physically. And the way the player just drifts around him because he's watching the ball play out to the winger or the fullback, whoever that was, then he like half-heartedly starts to jog after him, and then Eric McHugh comes across, and it's just like a mess. Now we've got all kinds of gaps, and then it's a really nice like cutback to another free player. So
right,
tons of mistakes, and like you said, a beaten team at this point. And I don't know. There's just so many gaps in the defense here. And I think we've talked about that too, of like, we're not worried about chance of creation. We're worried about goals scored and also like conceded really.
Yeah.
But the defending is not good. And actually so far this season, we are, let's see. I mean, in this game, it's again, this is where like the data is really like tough to digest because our XG is 1.24 to their 1.03, which like, and they end up scoring 3 goals.
Yeah.
So that's tough. I don't know.
You can kind of chalk it up though to, I mean, and this is definitely an oversimplification, but when you think about even that stat line of each team had 3 big chances. Oakland convert all 3 of them. Locomotive convert none. That's like, at the end of the day, like, I know it's a much more complex game than that. And sometimes it really is that simple where, there is it's not that hard to imagine Locomotive being up 2-0 at halftime and seeing it out.
Which has always been our thing, right? I mean, 2 things that really are just like Locomotive hallmarks at this point is like long streaks, winning or losing, or not winning, I guess, and finding it extremely hard to score goals. This is the stat that I was looking for. We concede on average 1.5 goals. All of our opponents' average put together is just 1.38 goals conceded. So, I mean, the thing is, our individual defenders are good. It's just like the actual like cohesive unit itself is just not shining at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it bears out in the stats. The last clean sheet that we kept was 4 matches ago at Monterey, where,
and again,
we obviously
it's
didn't.
team defending, right? Because I literally was just digging out Sinupe for being like not tracking. It's team defending. So
it is, yeah. So that's the only clean sheet that we've kept in the last 8. While we haven't been giving up a ton of goals, in this stretch, it's been one of those things where, when you're not scoring, giving up 2 goals is a death sentence.
I think you tweeted it earlier of like basically like we're tired of seeing Benny Diaz up for save of the week.
Yeah. He's been in there like all the time, and he's won a couple, which is very cool. And we're very pleased with like how Benny's played this season broadly.
He is overworked.
And like, yeah, and that's the thing is like one of the things that we used to pride ourselves on in the Lowry years was Logan Ketterer always got overshadowed in keeper stats because he just faced so few shots. Like, relative to everybody else, like he always was up there in clean sheets. Like I don't think he ever finished with the most, but he was always like towards the top of the league in clean sheets, and he was towards the bottom of the league in saves because he wasn't making that many saves.
Very like Jan Oblak-esque.
Yeah, like he's just make a couple of big saves. Like that's all we're asking you to do is, per game, see, the 2 or 3 shots that they fashion, like make sure they don't go in. This is like, and I'm not saying that 8 shots, like only conceding 8 shots over 90 minutes to Roots is fine. 6 of them are on target and 3 of them are completely unsavable. Like, and those are the ones that go in, it's like, that is what we can't do. Like you can't concede like that quality of chance that frequently and expect to win games. Unfortunately, it's like, it's all going to happen in front of Diaz. I would say they classified all. They said that Oakland took all 3 of their big chances. I would argue that the Mfeka chance is not a big chance, and I would argue that the first chance in the first half is a big chance that they did miss because Benny saved it.
I wonder
if that's not defined as a big chance, I'd be surprised.
I wonder if they call Mfeka's chance a big chance because of where he is in the box.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's proximity to goal, but even so, like just position of the shooter, kind of dead center of the goal, 10 yards out, like that's a big chance for me. That first one that Benny saves, but anyways, I know we've like overanalyzed the goals probably a little bit, but the reality here is that we're saying it because it's not something, unfortunately, that's unique over these last few games. I will say it is something that's creeping into this team because prior to like even during this winless run, they've only conceded two goals or more in 2 of the 6 games, right? Like, so it's like, it's not a problem that's like been hanging around for a long time, but it is creeping in, and like the confidence. And I think this is where maybe the conversation around the next game and like, how does Locomotive snap out of this streak? It just feels like there's a big task for Brian Clarehout right now to find a way to get this team to believe in itself again, because it just feels like that's kind of gone out.
Yeah, and that's the more difficult part of managing professional football players, I think, than the tactics or the data or the video, is the man management and the more like abstract stuff, because all these men are different, right? They respond to different things. They're motivated by different things. They are angered by different things. Some might need an arm around the shoulder. Some would probably prefer a really hard training session. And I don't know that we have that much insight into what Brian's like as a man manager, but
sure,
I think we'll see, right? And there's whispers here and there of certain players being not happy, I guess. Namely Petr Petrovic. I mean, we didn't even get to talk about his goal. I just thought it was really interesting that he completely passes by Brian and John and celebrates with Gianluca Masucci. Which, hey, Gianluca's great, like, cool, but it just looked odd. And I don't know if I'm making too much of that, but whatever.
Yeah. No, it was an interesting moment, because obviously, like, going to the bench area to celebrate is something that, happens in world football, but And I would say there are times where people celebrate with specific members of the staff or a specific sub or something like that, like their friend or something like that. And it was definitely weird because like he swerves the entire bench to go to Gianluca.
I think John Burklow, was he not looking for a high five? Like, I don't know.
Petar was doing a little like airplane sort of situation.
As he does.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It was, it just struck us as odd. And obviously, there's rumblings about, his like satisfaction with the staff broadly. We don't have like too many details, but just his extended absence, like for the injury and all this stuff. It just plays into the rumors about potentially being unsettled in El Paso. So,
right.
So yeah, something for the staff to face. And I'm sure it doesn't help when someone that you're really relying on, we talked about even through the better part of this, of what was, the good run of the season. Like we did talk about the team, like missing Petar's like that dynamic sort of presence on the wing and a goal scoring threat and all that stuff. And we kind of saw it, I think, as a way back to winning ways. Well, he's back, and like it hasn't obviously made an impact in the results column yet. So, lots for Locomotive to deal with. I mean, the staff obviously have shown the capability to handle stuff in the past, but this run has definitely been tough. And with that, it was I guess the second 3-game homestand or where Locomotive did not record a win this season, and their third 3-game homestand of the season. They have, in those 3-game blocks at home, they have just one win.
Fucking hell.
Now, in 2 other, they have wins in one-offs, or 2 games in a row. They played Orange County and Pittsburgh. They won both of those. Any time that we've played 3 straight, the only game that we've won was against Vegas.
Jesus.
So yeah, it has been a rough season at the Swap, and for all Locomotive success, they only have the 4 home wins to their name this entire season so far. The Seriously Loco match preview. I guess that means that leaving the friendly confines, if you will, and heading to RGV, and in fact playing 3 games on the road in a row, maybe a welcome sight for this Locomotive team, which just can't seem to figure it out at home.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of relieved because it's just been so depressing, rocking up to the Swap and seeing these performances. But yeah, maybe it is a welcome reprieve from home, which is weird to say, but we start, we start this road stand at Rio Grande Valley FC, which is a horrible place to go and try and turn your season around. So I don't know.
One of the worst for Locomotive, and I was actually trying to find our head-to-head stats against Toros historically, because while the overall record is pretty normal in the lifetime series between Locomotive and RGV, Locomotive 3 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, and RGV have 4 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. So just about even, but RGV do hold the edge with an additional win. And going back to that inaugural season in 2019, El Paso have still never registered a win in HEB Park. So a 1-0 loss in the inaugural season, which was followed by a 3-2 loss in 2021, a 4-1 loss, which I think many will remember towards the end of that 2021 season when Locomotive looked destined for greatness, and a 0-0 draw last year. So yeah, Locomotive still searching for their first win away at RGV ever. And RGV, despite being on a better run of form, we were talking about the fact that they were on a better run of form headed into the game at Southwest University Park, which, as we mentioned, ended in a draw. Their form since that, well, they've only played one match because obviously we turned and burned against each other. So they did go to Tulsa and lose 2-1. Mikka, I know it was mentioned by Brian. He did mention that maybe RGV's result in Tulsa wasn't going to be that informative because RGV ends this one down to 9 men and was actually down to 10 for 60 minutes in this one with Frank Nadars sent off in the 29th. So with that being said, 2-1 loss in Tulsa, not that weird. 2-1 loss in Tulsa, playing with 10 for an hour. I don't know. It almost kind of feels like creditable.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you could look at it that way. Yeah, Brian did mention in his post-training presser that the video is not really going to be that informative or instructive because when you lose 2 men to red cards, it's like just kind of trying to salvage, right? Do damage control. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's about video at this point necessarily. I think it's going back to our previous discussion about confidence and like making these players believe again. To be honest, like I feel like they need a good like Eric Calvillo speech / call out / premonition, because every time Eric Calvillo says something's gonna happen that's good, he tends to deliver. So, and we know he's kind of taking up that Richie mantle a little bit. But I mean, I'm only half kidding. I don't know what this team needs to like get a kick in the butt. But yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. And I mean, RGV, like, just going onto them a little bit, they don't score enough goals either. Their leading goal scorer is Cabrera Jr., of course. Mm-hmm. Which,
the Nepo baby, as we said.
Fair play, right? That the Nepo baby's actually performing, because otherwise, side-eye that. Cristiano Francois having a renaissance of sorts on the other wing from Cabrera with 2 goals and 3 assists. So, cool for him. Didn't work out here in Locomotive, but, you know, he tried. He was a good servant to the club, so nothing against him. But with RGV, I was just looking kind of like stylistically, trying to get a feel for what they do. Both looking back at our just the reverse fixture, but also what they've done over the season. And they hit the 3rd most accurate long balls per match in USL Championship. But they also concede the 3rd most penalties. So, yeah, like at both ends of the pitch, they're very interesting. And they are slightly better on the road than they are at home, but not by much. So, this is a toss-up, but we've just never had a good time at HEB Park. So yeah, I mean, mentioning the penalty concession, so part of why Frank Nadars will not be available against us for the red card, he's sent off for a 2nd yellow and concedes a penalty, and what proved to be the winning goal by Philip Goodrum. I'm gonna give quite a bit of grace in this one, because for me, just me, and I don't know if there's any Tulsa fans listening, this is a dive
And I would say this is quite unlucky for Nadars to be sent off for this, because I think it's shoulder to shoulder, and Goodrum just like knows the contact is coming and just goes limp, right? Like does the, he knows that he's about to get a shoulder to shoulder. So he just goes fully, dead fish.
Nice.
And is like launched by what is just another player like going to challenge shoulder to shoulder. So yeah, for me, super soft and probably not deserved. But the ball did lie. I'm waiting for the day where someone realizes that Goodrum does Panenkas, because he's going to get embarrassed one of these days when a keeper just stands there and catches it, like, like doesn't dive. But anyways, all that being said, the goal and credit to RGV, they do actually come back and score a goal with only 10 men in this. Francois came on, and as you said, he's been having a good season, and this is not good news for Locomotive, wing play, which undoes Tulsa, and obviously they hang on to get the result, but it is Francois getting down the left and just floating a good cross into the middle. Better defending, should Tulsa defend this better? Probably. But it's a classic kind of Juan Galindrez makes just kind of a classic center forwards run, gets in between both center backs, and Francois puts it right on his forehead, and it's an easy goal. So the warning for Locomotive, maybe the tape won't be super informative, but the tape should definitely be paid attention to, in the sense that Oakland hurt us down the wings, and we need to not have RGV hurt us down the wings, particularly if Francois hurts us in particular. That we can't have that sort of narrative.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Given his history at Locomotive. So
that's true. I'm like, let's just vibe our way to a win. No, you're right. There is stuff to take from looking at how they play. So, but
I will say the first goal they concede is super. It's one of those where I'm sure RGV fans will have been pissed, because a cross is played on the ground from the left wing for Tulsa. It's a low. It probably almost counts as a through ball, in the way that it's played, because it's played on the ground 40 yards from goal. And it just passes 7 RGV players who can't cut it out, and it's a tap in for Milo Josef. So I'm sure RGV will be upset about the concession of that first goal, and it has to be informative for Locomotive in that the wingers Kostishin and Petrovic need to be involved, obviously, but this team can be gotten at, and particularly if they're going to be missing Robert Coronado and Frank Nadars as well, they're going to be going a little bit further down the bench in terms of defensive midfield and central defense. So hopefully that's a good thing for Locomotive, and they can take a little confidence into this one. But anytime we're playing at HEB, it's just
yeah,
I don't anticipate us getting any result, because why would I? That we literally never have.
We've never done it. Yeah. I mean, do you think we shuffle the pack in our back line? Because Jose Carrillo is finally available for selection, was on the bench, didn't make his debut, but I mean, considering how we shipped 3 goals at home last time out, maybe it's time for a change. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I mean, we talked, and I don't think it was unearned in terms of the praise that we gave. The praise that we gave the McHugh-Pavkovitz partnership, I think, was warranted, and it has been a good run. I think, unfortunately for Eric, he has been, for me, Pavkovitz gets to be proactive and gets to be a little bit more adventurous. that means that Eric needs to be the one who's at home and kind of deals with the danger. And the last couple of games he has struggled and he's been kind of caught out. So I would say, if anything, Eric would probably be the one.
I think Eric is shattered, to be honest with you. He looks very tired. So.
This is like by far the most football that he's like ever played. I
think
because he wasn't like a consistent. I don't think he was like a everyday kind of guy for RGV either.
No, certainly not. And I think the most games he played in a season was at that club in the Faroe Islands that he played for. AB Argyr. He made 23 appearances, and I'm not even sure if those were starts.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he looks shattered. Which, I
mean, and like let's face it, a Scandinavian constitution in 100-degree kickoffs, like. That's
yeah. He's American too.
No, I know.
But yeah.
I'm that's mostly kidding, just to be fair. But yeah, the Vikings were tough, and then but they never had to deal with that. That 105 wet bulb temperature, whatever. So, anyways, I think there's probably something there. In terms of a shakeup, I think too, man, it's weird to say. I think it's good that Lucho got a night off,
kind of,
and sort of, and it was concerning that when he came on, he wasn't more of a threat,
and that we conceded too, yeah. Not that it was his fault, but
right. It coincided. So I worry a little bit, I guess, about how we'll line up offensively. I imagine, based on all the comments Brian's made and stuff, I would imagine that we see Zacharias in lieu of Josue Aron Gomez potentially.
Okay. Who hit the post? So it's
right.
You also got close. Yeah. We need some luck, man. We need something stupid to go in.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And it's tough because we kind of had something stupid go in. We got an own goal and still lost 3-1. So it's
true. That is true.
We got a slice of luck, but we didn't get a great. We didn't get really good luck. So, anyways, yeah, tough night for all involved with that loss to Oakland. But as we said, chance to bounce back on the road. The club has tweeted, which I will. I have to give it to Locomotive for how they will tweet through the crisis.
Toxic positivity.
They will tweet through the crisis. You're looking at the only team in the USL Championship that has not lost a match on the road in 2023. If that is not tempting fate,
it's technically right, which is the best kind of right, I guess.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's one of those this aged poorly, it's gonna age like an avocado type shit.
Yeah. It's either gonna be a freezing cold take or we're gonna have a record to brag about. I don't know. Can we just start inventing milestones like all these other USL clubs?
Josh Suggs.
They've now played 15,000 parsecs in whatever USL Championship. Just I don't even know anymore.
We're waffling now.
Yeah, we're waffling. We're trying to put off the inevitable, which Locomotive hopefully will be avoiding what has been inevitable in their history by going out and getting a win in the Rio Grande Valley. But we'll see how it plays out. If you have enjoyed, give us a follow, a subscription, whichever on your favorite podcast platform, and check us out on social media as well. We did not do questions for this episode, I think primarily because we had a lot to talk about kind of without and we understand like the frustration of the fan base. So obviously we will get you guys involved in future episodes as we typically do with the listener questions, and we'll involve you. If you want to get involved in the discussion, find us on social media, and we always track like questions or comments that come from listeners. So
Sure.
yeah, get into the discussion. Obviously not a lot of positive around Locomotive at the moment, but we know what this team's capable of, and hopefully they'll be able to bounce back and get back to winning ways with their first ever win in RGV. And we will be back to discuss that game next week, but until then, stay loco.